Megan Adler woke before her alarm, the way she did on most mornings, pulled out of sleep not by sound, but by the heavy pressure of worry settling behind her ribs. The small apartment in Covington was still dark, its thin walls barely holding in the stubborn cold that crept through every winter. She lay there for a moment, gathering herself, reminding her body to move, to endure, to keep going because she had no other choice. Then she sat up, forcing a steadiness she didn't feel. Chloe would wake soon. Chloe couldn't see the truth written across her mother's face. She crossed the narrow living room and clicked on the dim kitchen light. A flicker, then a weak glow. The apartment was aging faster than she could maintain it. She filled a kettle, rubbing at the tightness in her temples, then braced her hands on the counter as a wave of exhaustion swelled through her. They would have to move again. She hadn't figured out how to say it, not in a way a little girl could understand, not in a way that wouldn't break her heart. Soft footsteps approached. Mom. Chloe's small voice drifted from the hallway. Megan straightened instantly, smoothing her hair, lifting her chin. Hey, sweetheart, you're up early. Chloe patted in, her socks mismatched as always, her blonde hair sticking in every direction from sleep. She studied her mother with those big, perceptive eyes, the kind that saw more than Megan wished they did. Are you sad again? The girl asked quietly. No, Megan answered too quickly, then softened her tone. Just tired, that's all. Chloe stepped closer and wrapped her arms around her mother's waist, hugging with all the fierce sincerity of a child who believed love could fix anything. Megan held her back, closing her eyes as guilt washed over her. Chloe shouldn't have to read her moods. She shouldn't have to carry any of this. And yet she did. Every day, as they stood there, Megan's thoughts drifted, uninvited, into the past. She had once believed she'd built a life with a man who loved her. Brandon had been her first everything. First love, first hope, first promise of a future. She had nursed his mother through a long recovery, juggling work and caretaking so he could focus on rising in his career. She had put his needs before her own more times than she could count. And then, when success finally came to him, he left for someone wealthier, someone who could elevate him further, someone who wasn't, like Megan, exhausted, cash-strapped, and inconvenient. She opened her eyes and looked down at Chloe, who rested her cheek against her. This child was the only good thing that survived that marriage. Megan swallowed hard. She had to tell her soon about the rent increase, the move, the new neighborhood they hadn't found yet. Stability had become something she could no longer promise. But for this moment in their dim kitchen, she smoothed Chloe's hair and forced a gentle smile. Let's start our morning, okay? We'll figure everything out. Chloe nodded, trusting completely. And that trust was the very thing that made Megan's heart ache the most. The call came just after Megan dropped Chloe at preschool. She was walking back toward the bus stop, clutching her coat tighter against the wind, when her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Her heart lifted for a moment. Lately, she had been sending out applications anywhere that offered flexible hours, restaurants, catering companies, even temporary holiday shifts. Maybe someone was finally calling her back. Hello, she answered, breath clouding in the cold morning air. A beat of silence, then a voice she knew too well. Smooth, sharp, dripping with the arrogance she'd once mistaken for confidence. Well, well, Brandon Hale drawled. Still alive, I see. Megan stopped walking, her stomach dropping. She hadn't saved his number. She had blocked every old contact she could remember. But Brandon always found new ones. What do you want, Brandon? What, no hello? No gratitude for me checking on the mother of my child. His laugh was shallow, practiced. Typical Megan. Absolutely typical. She closed her eyes, steadying herself. I have nothing to talk about with you. Please don't call me again. Oh, I'll call whenever I feel like it, he snapped. Someone has to make sure you're not trying to squeeze anything more out of my family. My father-in-law thinks you were always angling for their property, you know. Helping my mom recover? Staying at the hospital with her? Manipulative as hell when you think about it. Megan's jaw tightened. I took care of your mother because she needed help, not because of anything you're suggesting. He scoffed. Come on. We both know you were hoping to get your hands on something. You've always been that way. Quiet, humble Megan. Pretending to be above it all while playing the long game. The accusation hit like a slap. She had sacrificed years of her life for him, for his mother, for the family she thought they were building. And still it wasn't enough. Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out. Why do you hate me this much? A pause. Then Brandon chuckled, a low, amused sound that chilled her. Hate you? Don't flatter yourself, he said. You were never worth strong feelings. You want the truth. You rejected me the first time I asked you out. 2 years you brushed me off. 2 years. You treated me like I wasn't good enough. And when I finally got you, oh, I made sure to knock you off that little pedestal you put yourself on. Megan felt the world tilt for a moment, like the ground had softened beneath her shoes. Brandon kept talking, his tone gleeful. You were never special. I married you because you were convenient, easy to mold, easy to keep in place. That's all. For a long moment, Megan couldn't breathe. Not because she believed him, but because she finally understood something she never had. His resentment had begun long before their marriage, long before their daughter. It was rooted in something she could never change, his own insecurity. And for the first time, the weight of his words didn't crush her. They clarified something. He had never loved her. He had never even tried. When Brandon paused, anticipating a reaction, she simply said, We're done here, and hung up. She stared at her phone, her breath steadying as the cold wind brushed past her. No more explanations. No more apologies. No more believing she owed him anything. Right there on the sidewalk, Megan made a silent vow. Whatever remained of her emotional tie to Brandon Hale ended in that moment, and she would never let him break her again. Megan rode the bus home with her hands folded tightly in her lap, staring out the window as familiar neighborhoods drifted by in gray, muted blur. The conversation with Brandon still clung to her, not because his words carried truth, but because they echoed something she had felt for a long time, an isolation that seemed to follow her no matter how hard she tried to be good, steady, honest. After the divorce, Brandon's entire family had cut her off as if she had never existed. His mother, the woman Megan once sat beside through nights of medication schedules and physical therapy, now refused to even acknowledge her birthday cards to Chloe. And Brandon's father-in-law, he had made it clear Megan was an inconvenience, someone to be removed from their orbit, forgotten. Her own family hadn't been much different. Her older sister, polished and successful, was the one everyone offered help to, babysitting, loans, emotional support. Megan, on the other hand, had always been the one expected to figure things out, to push through, to handle whatever came her way without complaint. When she mentioned the increased rent or the coming move, her mother's only reply had been, Well, you made your choices. On nights like this, she found herself wondering, what exactly had she done wrong? She didn't lie. She didn't steal. She didn't manipulate or scheme. She worked. She cared for people. She tried to do the right thing. So why did everyone seem so ready to shut her out? When she arrived at preschool that afternoon, Chloe bounded toward her with her usual bright smile. Mom, guess what? Today we painted rockets. And I got blue paint on my elbow, but I wiped it off before it got on my shirt. Megan smiled, grateful for the small burst of joy. But she caught something else, something tight behind Chloe's cheerful tone. Everything okay, sweetheart? Chloe hesitated, twisting a strap on her backpack. Yeah, it's just, some kids were being silly. They said, my shoes look old. She shrugged quickly, forcing another bright grin. But I told them old shoes mean you run faster. Like magic. It wasn't the words that broke Megan. It was the way her daughter tried so hard to pretend it didn't sting. The way she was already learning to carry burdens quietly so her mother wouldn't have to. Megan knelt and brushed a loose curl from Chloe's forehead. You don't have to be brave all the time, you know. But you are, Chloe whispered. The guilt hit hard. Chloe was growing up too fast. Learning resilience from necessity rather than childhood adventure. And Megan hated that she didn't have the strength or the resources to give her something softer to land on. As they walked home, Megan checked her messages again, nothing. That meant the upcoming banquet shift was even more important. One night of generous tips, might buy groceries, or cover moving boxes, or help with the deposit for whatever tiny apartment she could still afford. She squeezed Chloe's hand gently. She would take the shift. She would push through. She had to. For both of them. The next morning, Megan bundled Chloe into her coat and walked her toward preschool. The cold Kentucky air nipping at their cheeks. Chloe skipped ahead in short bursts, humming to herself, her breath puffing into little clouds. Megan tried to let the child's energy warm her, but underneath her calm exterior, she was calculating numbers again. Rent, moving costs, groceries, bus fare. Every column ended the same way. Short. They were halfway across the playground when a man stepped away from the fence, lifting a hand in a hesitant greeting. He was dressed in business slacks and a charcoal coat, the kind that looked expensive but worn around the edges. His tie wasn't crooked, but it wasn't crisp either. And although his posture was confident, the tiredness in his eyes betrayed long nights and too much responsibility. "Ms. Adler," he asked gently. Megan tensed. Instinctively protective. "Yes." He offered a small, apologetic smile. "I'm Michael Porter, Leo's dad. I wanted to talk to you for a moment, if that's okay." She blinked, caught off guard. This wasn't the tone she was used to from fathers at the school. "Of course," she said carefully. Michael exhaled, looking genuinely embarrassed. "I heard Leo's been overenthusiastic with Chloe, taking her crafts, teasing her. I'm really sorry. I've talked to him about it. It won't happen again." Before Megan could respond, Chloe ran toward them, eyes bright. "Mom, that's Mr. Porter. He's really nice. He brings cupcakes on birthdays and doesn't make anyone pay extra." Michael chuckled softly. "That's mostly for the teacher's sanity, but thank you." "Chloe." Megan watched the interaction, surprised at how natural it seemed. Most men, especially ones who looked like they hadn't had to worry about rent in years, kept their distance or spoke with clipped politeness. But Michael wasn't condescending or performative. He simply seemed human and warm in a way Megan had almost forgotten men could be. "I'm trying," he continued, turning back to her. "I juggle a few too many things at once. Single dad life wasn't exactly in the plan, but it's the plan now. I want to raise Leo better than how I grew up." There was no bragging in his tone, only truth. He explained briefly that he'd been raised in a crowded household with more bills than groceries, that he worked his way out of it through sheer persistence. Now, he worked long hours to make sure Leo never felt the insecurity he once lived with. Megan nodded, absorbing it, unexpectedly moved. It had been years since a man spoke to her without sharp edges or hidden motives. Years since she'd been addressed with kindness instead of hostility or suspicion. Michael glanced at his watch, then back at her. "If Chloe ever has trouble again, please let me know. I want the kids to feel safe here." She managed a small, real smile. "Thank you. I appreciate that." As he walked away toward the parking lot, Chloe slipped her hand into Megan's. "I told you he's nice," she said softly. Megan didn't reply right away. She was too busy grappling with the strange, unfamiliar warmth settling in her chest, a feeling dangerously close to hope. When Megan returned to the preschool that afternoon, Chloe came bouncing out of the doorway with a paper gift bag clutched in both hands. Her cheeks were flushed from play, her smile wide and earnest. "Mom, Leo said sorry today," she announced proudly. "And he gave me this. He said it's because he took my rocket picture last week." Megan crouched to look. Inside the bag was a handful of small treasures only a child would think to give. 2 stickers, a wrapped candy, and a tiny plastic dinosaur missing one leg. It was nothing of real value, yet somehow it felt like everything, a gesture of goodwill, of innocence of children trying to heal the things adults often made worse. "That was very kind of him," Megan said softly. Chloe nodded. "He said his dad talked to him, and that he shouldn't be mean just because he likes me." She wrinkled her nose. "I still don't think he likes me, but he's nicer today." Her attempt at maturity tugged at Megan's heart. Chloe always tried to spin things toward the bright side, even when the ground beneath them kept shifting. The little girl had learned, far too early, that the world didn't always cushion its blows. Megan hated that, hated how her daughter tried so hard to stand tall so that she wouldn't fall apart. As they walked home, Megan mentally reviewed the evening plans. Their belongings were already boxed, stacked near the doorway of their cramped apartment. A coworker with an old pickup truck had offered to help transport everything for a small fee, far cheaper than hiring movers. Even so, Megan knew the night would be long. They wouldn't finish unpacking until hours past Chloe's bedtime. When they arrived home, Megan reheated leftovers, while Chloe arranged her gift bag treasures on the small kitchen table as if displaying museum artifacts. "Mom, look, the dinosaur still stands if you lean it like this." Megan forced a smile she barely had the energy for. "That's impressive, sweetheart." Inside, the weight of exhaustion settled like wet sand across her shoulders. The call from Brandon still echoed in her bones. The upcoming rent increased clawed at every quiet moment. And yet she pushed herself to keep moving, packing the last blanket, taping the final box, folding the worn clothes they would carry to another temporary place. Tomorrow's shift kept circling in her mind. A corporate banquet, hundreds of guests, high tips if she performed well. Maybe, just maybe, it would help cover the deposit for their next apartment or the growing list of things Chloe needed. As dusk settled over Covington and she hauled boxes toward the door, Megan paused for a brief moment, hands braced on her knees. She was running on nothing but willpower now, fueled entirely by the small, unwavering love of the child unpacking a broken plastic dinosaur behind her. One more night, one more push, one more chance to keep them afloat. Exhaustion pressed down hard, but determination, stubborn and quiet, kept her standing. Megan woke with the dull ache of too little sleep, but compared to the night before, it felt almost merciful. She had managed a few solid hours after the move, barely enough to clear her head, but enough to keep her upright. She dressed quietly, careful not to wake Chloe, then brushed her daughter's hair into soft curls before they headed out into the chilly morning. Today mattered, more than most days. By late afternoon, Megan stood beneath the soaring chandeliers of the Hilton Netherland Plaza in downtown Cincinnati, the hotel buzzing with the restless electricity that always preceded a large corporate gala. Staff hurried past with trays, linens, floral arrangements. The clatter of silverware echoed against polished marble floors. Every surface gleamed. Every expectation was high. Her manager, a wiry man always juggling crises, waved her over. "Adler, your daughter can stay in the children's lounge tonight. Corporate approved it. Keep her out of the main hall. And we're good." Relief washed over Megan like a warm tide. "Thank you. I really appreciate it." "It's fine," he said, already turning away to address another issue. "Just stay sharp. Big night. Big guests. They tip well if you don't trip over them." Megan managed a faint smile, even though nerves fluttered in her stomach. She walked Chloe to the designated kids area, a corner room filled with toys, beanbags, and a small table for activities. Other children were already settling in under the supervision of a hired staff member. Chloe looked around with wide eyes. "Mom, they have coloring books. And a movie screen." "I know." Megan knelt, brushing a hand over her daughter's cheek. "You stay here, okay? If you need anything, tell Miss Karen. I'll check on you when I can." Chloe hugged her tightly. "You're going to do great, Mom." Megan's throat tightened. "Thanks, sweetheart." She slipped back into the main hall, straightening her apron and trying to calm her racing heart. Tonight's tips could mean groceries, part of the security deposit, a little breathing room. She needed this shift to go well, more than anyone around her could guess. As the first waves of guests began to arrive, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations hushed. Supervisors sharpened their tone. Servers spread out like pieces of a well-rehearsed choreography. Megan balanced a tray on her hand, weaving through clusters of early arrivals. The smell of roasted vegetables and expensive wine filled the air. Then the VIPs started entering, executives, partners, wealthy donors, family members. The energy grew heavier, more charged. Employees straightened their posture, forced polite smiles, ready to anticipate the slightest request. Megan inhaled slowly, willing her hands not to tremble. She could do this. For Chloe. For their future. For survival. The night had only just begun, and already the stakes felt impossibly high. Megan had just steadied her tray when a ripple passed through the banquet hall. A subtle shift in posture among the staff, a tightening of smiles. VIP cluster, she thought. Probably another executive family. She turned, and her entire body went cold. Brandon, walking in as though he owned the room, one hand resting on the small of Tiffany Hale's back. Tiffany, immaculate in a silk gown, carried herself like someone who'd never been told no in her life. And beside them, imposing as a shadow, was Gregory Hale Sr., Tiffany's father, the man whose company was sponsoring the entire gala. Megan's throat dried instantly. She forced her eyes down, praying, pleading silently that they wouldn't recognize her in her server uniform, hair pinned back, face drained of color. Hundreds of guests, dozens of staff. They could easily overlook her, but fate rarely took her side. A squeal echoed from the children's area doorway. "Mom, Leo is here." Chloe, bright, innocent, excited, ran toward her before the attending staff could stop her. In that split second, Megan saw Brandon's head snap toward the voice. His smile stalled, his eyes narrowed. Recognition struck him like a flame hitting oil. Megan's heart pounded so hard she felt it in her palms. She tried to usher Chloe back, keeping her head low. But Brandon was already moving, fast and deliberate, weaving through guests until he cornered her near a service station, his hand clamping around her arm. Well, he hissed through a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Couldn't stay away, could you? What is this, your little scheme? Crash my night? Make me look bad in front of my father-in-law?" Megan jerked slightly, wincing at the pressure of his grip. "Brandon, I'm working. I didn't know you would be here. Let go of me." "Oh, please," he scoffed. "You expect me to believe that? You've been obsessed with me since the divorce. You always need attention. This is just another pathetic attempt to get it." Her breath shook as she strained to pull free. "I'm not doing this with you. I'm here to earn tips and take care of my daughter. Leave me alone." His expression twisted, anger rising at the mere hint of defiance. "Watch your tone. You might be used to acting like a victim, but you don't get to talk back to me. Not here. Mom." Chloe's small voice trembled nearby, forcing Megan to step between her daughter and Brandon's glare. Megan kept her voice low, controlled. "Please just walk away. Tiffany wouldn't be thrilled to see you grabbing the help." Brandon's jaw clenched. For a moment, she thought he might actually lash out. His fingers dug harder into her arm before he abruptly released her, as if throwing something useless aside. "You need to learn your place," he muttered. She swallowed hard, gathering what little composure she had left as he stalked off to rejoin Tiffany and Gregory. Smiling again, polished, pretending nothing had happened, her knees felt unsteady, but she forced herself upright. Guests still needed drinks. Trays still needed carrying. She couldn't fall apart. Not here. Not now. Chloe clung to her sleeve, sensing the danger even if she didn't fully understand it. "It's okay," Megan whispered, though the tremble in her voice betrayed her. "I'm okay. Go back to the kids' area. I'll check on you soon." As Chloe hurried back, Megan inhaled deeply, trying to steady her shaking hands. She had survived worse. She could survive this. But the night was already slipping into a darker place than she ever anticipated. When Megan finally earned a short break, she slipped away from the noise of the ballroom and hurried toward the children's lounge. She needed to see Chloe to reassure herself her daughter was safe after Brandon's outburst. Just a quick check-in, she told herself. A minute of peace. But when she stepped inside the room, her stomach dropped. The beanbags were scattered. A handful of kids were coloring. The movie was still playing softly. Chloe was not there. Megan's pulse spiked instantly, hot and sharp. "Where's Chloe?" she asked the supervising attendant. The woman blinked, confused. "She just stepped out a few minutes ago. I thought you'd come for her." Before panic could take full shape, a small voice answered from behind her. "MS. Megan." She spun around to see Leo tugging nervously at the hem of his little blazer. "Leo, sweetheart, where's Chloe?" He swallowed, eyes wide. "She went to tell my dad a secret." The world seemed to tilt. "Your dad?" Megan whispered. "Where?" Leo pointed toward the corridor leading to the private meeting suites. Areas reserved for executives, VIP discussions, contract reviews. Areas where Brandon might be wandering. Areas where small children were absolutely not supposed to go. Megan's chest tightened painfully. Images shot through her mind. Brandon's face twisted in anger, his hand gripping her arm earlier. The way he always weaponized whatever he could to humiliate her. If he found Chloe alone. She didn't let her mind finish the sentence. "Thank you, Leo," she said in a strained voice, already moving. "Stay with the group?" "Okay." She nearly sprinted down the carpeted hallway. A server passing by called her name, but she didn't slow. She reached the door to the meeting suite just as another waitress, Vera, stepped out balancing a tray of champagne flutes. "Vera, can we swap?" Megan blurted, breathless. "Just for 10 minutes. I need to check something inside." Vera glanced at her pale face and didn't argue. "Go. Quickly. They tip well in there. So don't stay long." Megan whispered a thank you, took the tray from her and slid into the room. Inside, the lighting was softer, warmer. A single long table was set for refreshments. In the corner, perched on a small side table as if it were completely normal, sat Chloe, legs swinging, crayons scattered around her. She was calmly drawing a spaceship. Megan nearly collapsed with relief, but her breath caught again when she saw who else was in the room. Michael Porter stood near the window, cell phone pressed to his ear, talking quietly, something about restructuring timelines and a red-flagged clause. A business call. He hadn't even noticed Megan walk in. Chloe, however, noticed everything. Before Megan could reach her, Chloe slid off the chair, walked right past her mother, and approached Michael with total trust. She reached up and gently placed her small hand in his. The movement was so innocent, so instinctive, that time seemed to pause. Michael broke off mid-sentence, glanced down, startled, then softened as he recognized her. Megan stood frozen in the doorway, heart still racing, breath unsteady, realizing this moment, unexpected, delicate, was about to trigger consequences None of them could yet see. Michael lowered his phone, slowly, eyes shifting from Chloe's small hand, wrapped around his, to Megan's pale, breathless face. The business call faded out with a quiet, "I'll call you back," before he slipped the phone into his pocket. "Chloe," he asked gently, "are you all right?" She nodded with solemn seriousness, far beyond her 5 years. "I need to tell you something important, Mr. Porter." Megan felt heat climb her neck, mortification, fear, dread all tangled together. "Chloe, sweetheart, we don't interrupt grown-ups when they're working." "I'm so sorry." "Michael, she shouldn't be in here. I'll take her out." But Chloe tugged on his hand, desperate to make him listen. "Don't sign that contract," she whispered. "That man is lying to you." The room went silent. Megan froze, heart plummeting. "Chloe, you can't." "Honey, that's not." "Michael, I'm so sorry." "She doesn't understand." "I do," Chloe insisted, her little chin lifting. "I heard them talking. The fancy lady and her husband. They said they were tricking you. They said you'd lose lots of money and then they'd just laugh." Her voice trembled at the memory. Megan covered her mouth, horrified. Brandon and Tiffany. Of course. Chloe must have overheard their conversation before wandering in here. Her daughter, her sweet, trusting child, was trying to protect a man she barely knew. "Chloe," Megan pleaded softly, "it's not your place to." But Michael crouched down to meet Chloe's eyes, completely focused. "What exactly did you hear?" he asked. Voice gentle but level. Chloe swallowed. "The lady said she didn't care if it ruined your company. She said her dad could always find someone else. And the man with her, my old dad, he said you were gullible and it would be easy." Megan felt her legs go weak. Hearing her child retell Brandon's cruelty was like having old wounds torn open again. "I'm sorry," Megan whispered, nearly shaking. "Please don't listen to her. She's just trying to help. I'll get her out of your way." But Michael didn't look away from Chloe. His expression had shifted, no longer confused, but troubled, deeply thoughtful. "That's interesting timing," he said at last. "My head of security flagged something earlier, said the background on their financials looked off, said something felt wrong about their eagerness to close the deal." Megan blinked. She hadn't expected that. Michael stood slowly, still processing Chloe's words. "Kids sometimes see what adults overlook," he murmured. "No, please," Megan said quickly, the humiliation cutting deep. "Don't make decisions based on something she said. She's just honest," he finished, blunt and completely unfiltered. He looked at Chloe again, truly looked at her, and something softened inside him. "You were brave to tell me," he said quietly. "Thank you." Chloe nodded, relieved. Then he turned to Megan. "I know you're embarrassed, but you shouldn't be. Your daughter didn't come in here to cause trouble. She came because she thought someone might get hurt." Megan felt her breath hitch, tears threatening. Michael exhaled, the decision settling visibly across his shoulders. "I'm canceling the deal." "What?" Megan whispered. Because she confirmed what my team already feared, and because the integrity she showed didn't come from nowhere." He met Megan's eyes, steady and sincere. "She learned that from you." Megan couldn't speak, not with the mixture of shock, relief, and raw emotion rising in her chest. At that moment, something shifted between them, a fragile understanding built not on romance, but on truth, decency, and a little girl's courage. And the consequences of that moment were about to upend the entire room. The shift had just begun to settle into a steady rhythm again when the atmosphere snapped tight, sharp, sudden, the way a room changes right before a storm breaks. Tiffany Hale stood near the VIP table, one manicured hand pressed dramatically to her chest. Her voice carried just enough to draw attention without appearing hysterical. "My wallet," she announced. "It's missing. I had it earlier. Someone must have taken it." A hush rippled through the nearby guests. Gregory Hale Sr. frowned, instantly irritated. Brandon played his role perfectly: concerned husband, protective son-in-law. Yet his eyes glittered with something Megan recognized too well: satisfaction. The manager rushed over, tying his professionalism together with a fraying thread. Tiffany flashed him a tight smile. "We need your staff checked. All of them." Megan felt dread settle low and heavy in her stomach. It wasn't the first time Tiffany had made something disappear when convenient. And standing nearby, Brandon held her gaze for one triumphant second before turning away, pretending to rejoin the crowd. He wanted this. He wanted her dragged through the humiliation of being searched like a criminal. The manager approached, apologetic but tense. "Megan, could you come with security for a moment? It's protocol. I know you didn't do anything, but we have to follow procedure." Of course this would happen tonight of all nights. She swallowed, nodding faintly. "I understand." But inside she was shaking. Security motioned her toward the hallway. Brandon leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a small smirk forming as though the universe had finally agreed with him. Tiffany whispered something in his ear, and he didn't even bother hiding his satisfaction. Megan followed security, each step feeling heavier, colder. They opened the door to the staff room, and just as one of the guards reached for gloves, the hallway behind them shifted with the sound of approaching footsteps. Then a familiar voice. "There you are." Megan turned and nearly lost her breath. Michael Porter stepped into the doorway, warm and effortless in his presence, as though the entire evening had been arranged with her in mind. "Megan," he said gently, "I asked you to change for the final portion of the event. My assistant brought your outfit. It's waiting for you." The room went still. The manager blinked. Security froze. Even the guard's gloved hand paused midair. Because suddenly, she wasn't just a server. She was someone the host, someone powerful, spoke to with familiarity, respect, even affection. Michael looked at security with polite confusion. "Is there a problem?" The manager stammered. Mr. Porter, sir, there was an accusation. A guest misplaced her wallet and protocol." "Protocol?" Michael repeated, his voice cool and clipped. "So, your first step was to pull one of my personal staff into a back room." Megan's eyes widened in shock. Personal staff? He was giving her a shield, publicly, unmistakably. "And no, sir," the manager said quickly. "It's just, well, Mrs. Hale insisted." Michael's expression sharpened by a degree. "Did she now?" Security shifted uneasily. The balance of power had flipped, so, completely, Megan could almost feel the air change. He stepped closer to Megan, his voice low enough only she could hear. "You don't have to fear this. I know exactly what's happening." Then louder to the staff, "Unless you have evidence or a guest complaint filed properly, this ends here." Immediately, the guards backed off. The manager nodded, repeatedly. "Of course. Absolutely. Our apologies, Ms. Adler." Michael offered his hand, not touching her, but inviting her to step out of the room with him. Megan followed, stunned, still trembling, yet held together by the sudden certainty that she was no longer facing this night alone. Behind them, whispers spread. The truth, some of it, was beginning to surface. And Brandon's plan, the one he'd crafted with such smug confidence, was already starting to fall apart. Michael's security team moved quickly once he gave the quiet order. 2 men in black suits approached Gregory Hale Sr.'s table, speaking to him in low, clipped tones. Gregory's expression shifted from annoyance to shock to something dangerously close to fury. Brandon watched the exchange, confused at first, then increasingly nervous as Gregory's face darkened with every whispered word. Within minutes, the head of security returned to Michael with a tablet in hand. "Mr. Porter," he said discreetly, "we've confirmed discrepancies in the Hale proposal. Inflated projections, misrepresented holdings, and a flagged communication between Mr. Hale and an outside partner indicating the deal was intended as a short-term extraction. Megan's breath caught. Chloe had been right. It hadn't been childish imagination. She had heard the truth. Michael nodded once, calmly. "Thank you." But Chloe's former father had overheard enough to panic. Brandon lurched to his feet. "This is a misunderstanding," he blurted, eyes darting frantically from Gregory to the security team. "People exaggerate numbers in business all the time. It's standard. Tiffany's dad knows how this works." Gregory Hale Sr. turned on him with a glare so cold it silenced the entire table. "Are you suggesting I condone fraud?" he asked, voice like steel. Brandon's face drained of color. "And no. Sir, I meant," Tiffany, suddenly wanting no part of his sinking ship, scooted her chair an inch away from him, pretending she had never met the man. "Dad, I had no idea," she said delicately. Brandon handled all the documents. Brandon's jaw dropped. "Tiffany, you helped." "Security," Gregory snapped. "Remove him." Brandon stumbled as two guards took him by the arms. "Wait, this is insane. You can't just, this is all because of her." He jabbed a finger at Megan, eyes burning with hate. "She's been obsessed with ruining my life since the divorce. She planted the idea. She's manipulating you all. No," Michael said sharply. "What ruined your life was your own dishonesty." The guards tightened their grip. Tiffany rose gracefully, already distancing herself from any fallout. "Father, I'll wait in the car." Brandon, however, was not done fighting. "Megan!" he shouted as he was dragged toward the exit. "You think this makes you special? You're still nothing. You'll always be enough," Michael commanded. The doors closed behind Brandon with a heavy, final thud. Silence washed over the ballroom. Stunned, electric, impossible to ignore. Then Michael turned to Megan, his voice softening. "Let's get you ready." His assistant appeared moments later with 2 garment bags, one small, one full length. He led Megan and Chloe to a side room where a mirror, soft lighting, and neatly arranged makeup tools waited. It felt surreal, like stepping into someone else's life. Chloe gasped when she saw the dress laid out for her mother. A simple but elegant evening gown in midnight blue, flowing and soft. The kind that transformed posture and spirit all at once. "For me?" Megan whispered, voice trembling. "I can't, I'm staff." "Not for the rest of the night," Michael said gently. "You're my guest." The words felt like both protection and possibility. Megan let the stylist pin her hair, smooth her makeup, zip the gown. Chloe twirled in her own tiny dress, looking like a fairy tale whisper of hope. When they stepped back into the ballroom together, the entire staff stopped. Guests turned. Conversations quieted. Even the chandeliers seemed to cast their light differently. The transformation wasn't just the dress. It was the way Megan carried herself. No longer shrinking, no longer bracing for the next blow. For the first time in years, she wasn't invisible. She wasn't small. She wasn't defeated. She was seen. A hush rippled through the crowd, followed by soft murmurs of admiration. In the distance, Brandon's absence lingered like a smudged stain finally scrubbed away. The humiliation he had so carefully orchestrated had flipped back onto him, publicly, undeniably. And for Megan, standing in the glow of a ballroom that had once felt hostile, holding Chloe's hand as the little girl proudly smiled up at her, it felt like walking out of the ashes of her old life into the first breath of something brand new. 1 year later, the world Megan once knew felt like a distant echo, familiar but no longer hers. Life had settled into a rhythm she had only ever witnessed from afar, watching other people live it. Now it belonged to her too. The apartment Michael arranged for her sat just a short walk from Porter Innovations, bright and warm with sunlight spilling across the living room each morning. For the first time in years, she woke without the gnawing dread of overdue bills or the threat of eviction. She had a steady position in the company's community outreach division. Work that mattered to her. Work she excelled at. It felt like a return to herself rather than a rescue. Chloe thrived. The move to a better neighborhood gave her stability she'd never known before. And Leo, once the boy who teased her in preschool, had become her absolute best friend. They built forts in Megan's living room, traded drawings, and treated one another with the easy loyalty of siblings. Even their teachers joked, "Where one goes, the other follows." As for Megan and Michael, nothing between them was rushed. No whirlwind romances or dramatic declarations. Just small moments built carefully over time. A shared coffee on the company rooftop, conversations about their childhoods, quiet dinners after work when schedules aligned. Trust grew naturally, layered gently over the wounds each carried. Michael never pushed. Megan never pretended. And somehow, that simplicity became something profound. One crisp autumn afternoon, nearly a year to the day after the gala that changed everything, Michael asked her to walk with him through the old stone courtyard behind the Hilton. It was the same venue where everything had come crashing down, and where everything had quietly begun again. "I thought it might feel strange," Megan admitted softly, glancing around the empty ballroom visible through the windows. "Being back here." "Strange can be good," Michael replied, taking her hand. "It means things have changed." He paused beneath the archway they had passed through during the chaos of that night. Then he took a small box from his coat pocket. "Megan Adler, I don't want to rescue you. I don't want to fix you. I want to build something with you. Slowly, steadily, the way we've been doing all year. Will you marry me?" Her breath caught, not because she was surprised, but because she finally believed she deserved the life being offered to her. "Yes," she whispered. Their wedding, held months later in that same hall, was simple and intimate. No corporate sponsors, no powerful families, no simmering hostility, only laughter, the glow of flickering candles, and the people who had truly seen them. Chloe and Leo walked down the aisle together, each holding a small bouquet, beaming with pride. During the reception, Chloe tugged on Megan's dress and whispered, "Mom, when will the baby come?" Megan smiled, resting a hand over her growing belly. "Soon, and you're going to be the best big sister." Leo puffed out his chest beside her. "And I'll be the best big brother." Michael laughed, ruffling both their heads. "I don't doubt that for a second." In that moment, surrounded by warmth, sincerity, and a future built on choice rather than survival, Megan felt a quiet truth settle inside her. Life had corrected itself, not with fireworks or revenge, but with steady, patient grace. The kind that doesn't erase the past but transforms it into something bearable, even meaningful. She lifted her gaze toward Michael, toward the children laughing at his sides, and felt gratitude wash over her like light. A year ago, she had walked into that ballroom trembling. Now she walked out of it whole.